Uncovered my husband's secret gambling addiction after finding a hidden stash of receipts. Now our finances are crumbling and his promises are too. When I was 23 years old, I met the woman who would become my ex-wife. Our relationship moved incredibly fast, and by the time I turned 26, we were married and parents to our son and daughters. But almost immediately after our wedding, everything spiraled out of control. Within just a few months, my wife had an affair, and even worse, the man she cheated with introduced her to heroin. When I confronted her, she promised me she'd get help, but instead, she disappeared in the middle of the night. I haven't heard a word from her for 4 years. The last I heard, she's still with that man, supposedly homeless somewhere in Las Vegas, but I don't know how true that is. My only focus now is holding everything together for my kids. I just don't have the time or the patience to chase her down after what she did, and honestly, I don't want to. I went through with a divorce in absentia and tried to move on the best I could. Even through all that, my relationship with my in-laws stayed strong. Every other weekend, the kids go to their grandparents' house on their mom's side, and I've always been more like a son than an ex-son-in-law to them. Christmas parties, family get-togethers, they still include me. The entire family has made a silent pact not to bring up my ex for the kids' sake, pretending she's just not part of the conversation anymore. It's especially hard for my son, who's 9 now. He was deeply wounded by his mom walking out, to the point where he once told me he hoped she was dead. Seeing that, I got him into therapy. She was verbally abusive during her last year with us, and my son remembers every bit of that pain. After my ex left, her sister and her boyfriend began coming around a lot more to spend time with the kids. Knowing how much I worked, they'd babysit and called it practice for when they had their own kids. The truth is, my kids adored them, and being spoiled with kindness was the antidote we desperately needed after so much chaos. They ended up getting married, clearly crazy about each other, but then tragedy struck. Not long after their daughter was born, her husband died in a workplace accident. The loss was almost unimaginable, devastating to everyone who knew him. I tried to support my sister-in-law as best I could, taking her daughter for the day when she needed time to herself or when the grief seemed too much. She's been in counseling for years but still wears her wedding ring, telling me she can't ever see herself dating again. We talk about her late husband often. Though she's reached a better place, it's clear she's still so deeply in love with him. I can't even fathom the emptiness she must feel. Over the past 2 years, our lives have become more and more entwined. My kids love their aunt, and she comes over for dinner a couple times a week. Her daughter and my youngest girl have become inseparable, constantly having sleepovers, giggling late into the night. I've moved on from my ex, but the fear of bringing someone as dangerous as her into my children's lives has stopped me from even thinking about dating. Yet, somewhere along the way, I found myself softening toward my sister-in-law. She's endured so much, but underneath it all, she's just an incredible mom and one of the warmest people I know. Her sweetness and sense of humor lighten up my hardest days, and just being in her orbit has become the highlight of my week. Then I caught myself noticing just how beautiful she is, and I felt a wave of guilt. Her late husband was a good friend of mine, and knowing she's still grieving, I tried to suppress my feelings and keep things strictly platonic. The pandemic made it nearly impossible to keep our distance. We saw less and less of everyone else, so we ended up spending even more time together. Despite the growing closeness, I always made sure to sidestep anything romantic. But just last week, something shifted. It was late, the kids were fast asleep, and I made us a couple of drinks, not enough to get drunk. She decided to stay over, so I took the couch, but when I woke up, she had made us breakfast. The 4 of us together felt like the kind of family I'd always wanted. Before leaving, she kissed me on the forehead, a small gesture, but something she'd never done before. Still, I kept my silence. Later that day, I found my son playing quietly in his room, looking troubled. I asked him what was wrong, and, in that frank, innocent way only a child can, he told me he wishes his aunt was his mother. When I gently pressed him for why, he listed all the little things: how kind she is to him, how she never yells, how she draws with him at Grandma and Grandpa's, even things I didn't know about. Hearing that, my already softened heart just melted further for this woman. During the next visit to drop the kids off with their grandparents, I couldn't help myself. I joked about how it sometimes feels like I'm married to my sister-in-law. Her parents didn't laugh, though. Their friendliness seemed tinged with a new wariness. Maybe they suspect something, or maybe they just don't approve. I honestly don't know. But that doesn't make what I feel go away, and it's getting impossible to ignore. The truth is, I've fallen in love with her. Now I'm caught between trying desperately to smother these feelings for the sake of my family's peace, or daring to be honest and finding some way to navigate this impossible situation. I have no idea how to approach a widow, especially someone who was married to a friend, with these kinds of feelings. All I want is to do right by everyone involved, but my heart is so loud it's hard to think straight. Update 1. Shortly after reflecting on everything and considering all the advice I'd received, I had this sudden realization. My kids were spending Sunday night at their grandparents' house. Usually, when that happens, my niece, my former sister-in-law's daughter, joins them. I keep these bi-weekly visits going because I think it's crucial for my kids to have a steady relationship with their maternal grandparents, and my Sil lets her daughter go because she loves playing with my daughter. That night, it hit me, both Sil and I would be free, for once, without any kids around. I almost just vegged out with some gaming or threw in an extra gym session, but instead, I got this idea: why not take the chance to see Sil alone, without any chaos, just us? So I texted her, "Hey, kids are out this Sunday, was thinking you might want to get dinner." I picked a pretty upscale place that had just reopened for outdoor dining, something a bit out of the ordinary for us. She agreed and said she'd come by my place first. The nerves hit me hard. Usually, we're never alone together, especially not in this context. I scrubbed up better than normal, dressed up but not overdoing it. She showed up and honestly, seeing her almost knocked the wind out of me. She was in this elegant evening dress, makeup done, not her usual look. She looked absolutely stunning. I must have stood there slack-jawed, because I literally didn't know what to say for a second. We complimented each other, made some small talk, but I still didn't have the nerve to bring up the growing feelings I'd been harboring. She wasn't pushing anything either. At dinner, the atmosphere was perfect, live jazz, killer food, just a sense that the world had slowed down around our table. She confessed this was her first real adult night out, just for her, in years, and I said it was about the same for me. We laughed, joked, and there was this new sort of casual, comfortable touching between us. But every time I tried to work up the courage to say something, I froze, terrified I'd ruin the moment. Instead, I just let myself enjoy everything. But then, everything shifted as we headed back to my car. Some impulse just took over, and I offered my arm to her. She looped hers through mine, and suddenly, we were just walking together, arm in arm, no awkwardness, no comments, it just felt right. I opened her car door for her, ready to drive her back, but she stopped me, nervous but determined. She flat out told me to wait because she wanted to kiss me. No alcohol talk for her, this was all her. I pulled her in, and we kissed, right there outside the restaurant, with her leaning against my car. The feeling was indescribable. I'd been wanting that for so long. We must have stood that way, lost in the moment, for at least half an hour. When we finally broke away, there were these dreamy, lingering glances between us before I drove her back to my place. She held my hand the entire way, and I don't think I've ever known happiness like that. When we sat down together, everything came pouring out. I told her how I'd started having feelings for her a long time ago, but after everything we'd both been through, I was scared of driving her away. She told me she'd been carrying a torch for me for about 6 months. She remembered how I'd gone on a couple of disastrous Tinder dates and confided in her as a friend. That's when she said she realized she had feelings for me. She got so jealous and angry about me seeing other women. I'd never made a move because of her late husband, and she didn't want to approach me in case I saw echoes of my ex-wife in her and started to resent her for it. Once we got back to my place, I invited her in. We tried to fight off the urge to jump straight into bed and just sat on the couch, snuggling and talking honestly about what this could mean for us and how we could make it work. There were tears. We talked about her late husband and where she was with her grief. I told her I never wanted to rush her, and that I'd wait as long as she needed. She told me she finally felt like she was ready to love again, that she'd spent a long time grappling with whether it was okay to have feelings for me at all. Then came the topic of her sister, my ex-wife. The big question was, what would we do if she ever showed up again or tried to come back into our lives? If she came back apologetic and, supposedly reformed, would I ever take her back? That was an easy answer for me, absolutely not. I've forgiven her for cheating on me, but I'll never forgive what she did to our son. He was so joyful before she started cheating, using, and lashing out at him. He's better now, but his behavior and negativity really worried me for a long time. Sil was worried about how he might react to us, since, unlike our daughters, he's old enough to understand everything. I told her not to bring it up directly with him yet, but not that long ago, he told me he wished his aunt was his mom. We both agreed to take it slow, not rush things. But then, caught up in the moment again, the kissing started up, and, well, with nobody around to interrupt, we finally gave in to what we both wanted. I'd fantasized for so long about waking up next to her and brushing her hair out of her face, and that morning, I finally got to live it. We decided to establish regular date nights and really build on the solid foundation we already have. When the time comes to tell our families, we'll do it together, united. That's where things stand now, and honestly, I've never been more excited for what the future holds. Update 3. I forgot to add that I am referring to my ex-wife as Jessica, and my sister-in-law as Sylvia, a little play on words there that just cracks me up. Well, we finally told everyone, and for the most part, things have gone surprisingly well. When our respective kids were with my in-laws, Sylvia and I drove over to see my parents. They'd met her a few times before, but truthfully, my family and the in-laws rarely mingled at the same events. They recognized her, at least, as Jessica's sister. My dad isn't one to get sentimental, so I couldn't really read his reaction, but my mom was totally supportive. She did immediately ask, "Does Jess know?" We explained that I haven't spoken to Jessica in 4 years, and Sylvia hasn't heard from her in 2. We figured we'd cross that bridge when we came to it. My folks just seemed genuinely happy for me, and that was a relief. Yesterday, we went to a small Labor Day gathering at my in-laws' place. I knew the vibe would be chillier there since, after all, they're all related to my ex-wife, too. My parents kindly took the kids to the zoo and out for ice cream, so Sylvia and I could arrive at the party alone. The moment we walked in, everyone wanted to know where the kids were. I felt like there were a million reasons not to do it, but I took Sylvia's hand and, together, we told everyone, the kids weren't there because we wanted to announce, we're a couple now. It wasn't even that big a crowd, maybe 8 people, but it felt like standing in front of a stadium. At first, the reaction wasn't what I expected. Several of Sylvia's aunts were thrilled for us. I got hugs from people I barely even spoke to before. Funny enough, nobody even mentioned Jessica right away. They were all just excited Sylvia hadn't resigned herself to never dating again. The only person who made any waves was my mother-in-law. She made a point of telling everyone she already suspected we were together because I supposedly gave Sylvia puppy dog eyes and because Sylvia talked about me nonstop. Then she asked how long we'd been dating in secret, and I told her, truthfully, just a week. She scoffed, said lying isn't a great way to start a relationship, and then, half joking, accused us of sneaking off at a pool party in June to smooch. After the party, Sylvia's parents pulled us aside. Her mom and dad wanted to know how serious we were and, just like my parents, they asked, does Jessica know? When I said no, and that her opinion shouldn't matter given that she abandoned her family 4 years ago, they got pretty tense. Turns out, they'd be a lot more comfortable if I told Jessica that I was dating her sister. They seemed especially anxious, worrying that if Jessica ever returned, sober and with her life together, she'd try to make amends, only to be shattered by learning about Sylvia and me, maybe even relapse. They sounded like they knew something I didn't, and as it turns out, they did. Jessica's been calling and talking to them for a year now, and they never told me. I felt genuinely upset that they'd kept this secret. Sylvia was furious, too, because after her husband died, Jessica didn't reach out to her once. They showed me Jessica's Facebook profile, the one she blocked me from, and there she is, looking normal, nothing like the broken person she became when she left. Seeing her looking healthy actually made me and Sylvia feel a little better. Her parents said they kept in touch because Jessica is ashamed and feels she deserves to lose her kids. She couldn't face them after how things unraveled. Her parents gave me Jessica's phone number, asking me to call her. I told them my feelings for Sylvia were real, and there was absolutely no chance of reconciling with Jessica. My father-in-law seemed to accept this, but my mother-in-law still looked like she wanted the old family back, desperately clinging to hope. After leaving, I spoke to Sylvia about all of this. We'd already talked about what would happen if Jessica ever returned, but with these new revelations, we had to revisit everything. I poured my heart out. I told Sylvia I'm deeply in love with her, that what I feel with her now is deeper and richer than anything I ever felt for Jessica. The stress overwhelmed her. She broke down in tears, angry at her parents for hiding everything, and furious at her sister for never calling or offering condolences after her husband passed. She confessed a fear that I might leave her if Jessica ever returned. I assured her, again and again, that would never, ever happen. It took long hugs and lots of kisses before she settled, but when we finally went to pick up the kids, we felt close again, stronger, even. Since we've been together, Sylvia's been sleeping over regularly. So the kids don't catch on, I wake up at 5 a.m. to sneak from my bedroom to the couch before anyone wakes up. Yesterday morning, we decided it was time to tell the little ones what's going on. Our daughters were thrilled. They're too young to really understand the bigger picture, they just love playing together. I took my son aside for a private chat, asked him if he was alright with all of this and what he thought. He wondered if we'd all live together someday. I told him maybe. Then he asked if this made his aunt into his stepmom and I told him he can call Sylvia whatever he's comfortable with. What matters most is that we both love him and will always respect his feelings. That's when he asked a lot of questions about his mother, things he'd never brought up before. I answered honestly, though I softened some of my responses. He's learned a little about the dangers of drugs at school, so I finally told him that his mom had a problem and made some really bad choices. Then he asked me why his mother didn't love him. That shattered me. I told him the truth as best as I could. His mother did love him, but she made mistakes, huge, terrible mistakes. Sometimes, adults just don't do what's right, even when they know better. He asked if I still loved her. I told him I want her to get healthy, that I don't want her to be sick anymore, but she hurt us too badly for me to feel the same way about her now. I'm not sure how much of that he fully understood, but since Sylvia's been with us, he's so much happier. He's more outgoing, always trying to impress Sylvia the way I used to try to impress my own mom as a kid. And even though I still have to make that phone call to Jessica, that conversation hangs over my head. Having Sylvia by my side, kissing her and holding her at night, brings me a kind of happiness I forgot was possible. I didn't even realize how deeply unhappy I'd been for years until Sylvia showed me what joy feels like again. Now we're doing all those giddy and love things. She leaves me love letters in my work lunchbox. Even little poems. I decided to send flowers to her work. She had mentioned before that a few of the women there had been nudging her to ask me out for months, so I thought sending flowers would not only make her happy but also serve as the perfect thank you, and a playful wink, to the office girls who'd been rooting for us. I could just imagine them all seeing the flowers arrive, grinning and whispering about it. Honestly, the thought made me laugh. Not only did it light up her day, but it gave those ladies exactly the kind of office gossip they'd been hoping for. Update 4. Well, I finally made that phone call to Jessica. I put it off for 3 weeks, but Sylvia's parents kept asking about it every time we saw them, and honestly, the whole thing was eating at me. I figured it was better to just rip the band-aid off and get it over with. I called on a Tuesday evening after the kids were in bed. Sylvia was at her place that night, giving me some space to handle this alone. When Jessica picked up, hearing her voice after 4 years was surreal. She sounded different, cleaner, if that makes sense. More like the woman I married, before everything fell apart. She was shocked to hear from me. Started crying almost immediately, apologizing over and over. I let her get it out, but I kept my voice steady and told her straight up, Jessica, I'm calling because your parents asked me to. I'm dating Sylvia now, and I wanted you to hear it from me rather than through the family grapevine. The silence on the other end stretched on forever. Then she just whispered, Sylvia? Like she couldn't believe it. I explained that we'd gotten close over the years, that she'd been amazing with the kids, and that we'd recently realized we had feelings for each other. I made it clear this wasn't some rebound thing, that I genuinely loved her sister. That's when Jessica completely broke down. She begged me not to date Sylvia, saying it would destroy any chance of our family healing. She kept insisting she was clean now, had been for 2 years, and that she'd been working with a therapist to figure out how to make amends. She wanted to come back and fix everything. I had to cut her off. I told her there was nothing to fix between us. That ship had sailed the night she walked out on her children. I said I was glad she was healthy, but that didn't erase what she'd done. The kids and I had moved on, and Sylvia was part of our life now. Jessica got angry then. Really angry. She accused me of stealing her sister, said I was using Sylvia to hurt her. She even suggested that Sylvia only got involved with me to get back at her for something. That pissed me off more than anything else she could have said, because it was so far from the truth. I told her she needed to respect my decision and hung up. About an hour later, my phone started blowing up with texts from Jessica. At first, they were more apologies, but they quickly turned nasty. She called me every name in the book, said I was a terrible father, and threatened to come back and take her kids. I screenshot everything and blocked her number, but here's where things got complicated. The next day, Sylvia got a call from Jessica. Apparently, Jessica had gotten Sylvia's number from their parents and spent an hour screaming at her. Jessica accused Sylvia of being a backstabbing whore who seduced her husband while she was sick and vulnerable. She told Sylvia that their late husband would be ashamed of her for betraying family. That last part absolutely destroyed Sylvia. She showed up at my door in tears, shaking. It took me 2 hours to calm her down. She kept saying maybe Jessica was right, maybe we were wrong to be together, maybe she was dishonoring her late husband's memory. I held her and reminded her of everything we'd talked about, that her husband had been gone for 3 years, that she deserved to be happy, that what we had was real and beautiful. But the damage was done. Sylvia started pulling back after that call. She stopped staying overnight, made excuses to skip our date nights. When I confronted her about it, she said she needed time to think. She was worried about the kids getting caught in the middle of family drama, worried about what people would think, worried about everything. 2 weeks of this pushed me to my breaking point. I showed up at her apartment one evening and laid it all out. I told her I understood she was scared, but that running away wouldn't make the problem disappear. I said if she truly wanted to end things between us, I'd respect that, but she needed to make that decision based on what she actually wanted, not based on Jessica's manipulation. We talked for hours that night. She admitted she was terrified of Jessica coming back and trying to destroy what we'd built. She was also scared that the kids might get hurt if there was a custody battle. I promised her I wouldn't let Jessica hurt our family, any of us. We decided to talk to a lawyer about Jessica's threats, just to be safe. That's when Sylvia finally told me something she'd been keeping to herself. During Jessica's phone call, Jessica had mentioned she was already back in town. She'd been staying at a motel about 20 minutes away for the past week, watching and waiting for the right time to approach the family. The thought of Jessica lurking around, potentially near my kids' school or our neighborhood, made my blood run cold. I called the lawyer the next morning, and he advised me to document everything and consider getting a restraining order if Jessica showed up at my house or workplace. I haven't told the kids any of this yet. My son's been so happy lately, and my daughters are thriving. The last thing I want is to drag them back into Jessica's chaos. But I know I might not have a choice much longer. Sylvia and I are working through this together now. She's back to staying over a few nights a week, and we're trying to focus on building our future rather than letting Jessica control it. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking over my shoulder every time I leave the house. The strangest part is that her parents seem to think Jessica's return is a good thing. They keep hinting that maybe this is an opportunity for healing and forgiveness. I love them, but they don't understand that some bridges can't be rebuilt once they've been burned to the ground. I just hope Jessica gets whatever help she needs and moves on with her life somewhere far from here. Because I'm not giving up Sylvia, and I'm sure as hell not letting anyone hurt my kids again. Update 5. I thought things were finally settling down. Jessica had been quiet for about 2 weeks after that horrific phone call with Sylvia, and I was starting to hope she'd gotten the message and moved on. I should have known better. Last Thursday, I got a call at work from my son's school. The principal told me that a woman claiming to be his mother had shown up during lunch, asking to see him. The school didn't let her anywhere near the kids, thank God for their protocols, but they wanted me to know. My hands were shaking as I hung up the phone. I immediately called Sylvia, who left work early to pick up all the kids while I dealt with the school and filed a police report. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I sat down with my son. I had to tell him what was happening. I kept it simple, that his birth mother was back in town and might try to contact him, but that he didn't have to see her if he didn't want to. His reaction broke my heart. He just stared at me for a long moment, then asked, "Is she going to make Aunt Sylvia go away?" The fear in his voice was devastating. I promised him that wouldn't happen, but I could see he didn't entirely believe me. The next morning, I was loading the dishwasher when I heard a car door slam in my driveway. I looked out the window and there she was, Jessica, walking up to my front door like she had every right to be there. My first instinct was to call the police, but something made me hesitate. She looked different. Tired, older, but not the strung-out mess I'd expected. She was carrying what looked like a gift bag. I opened the door but kept the chain lock on. "You need to leave, Jessica. Now, please," she said, and her voice cracked. "I just want to see my babies. 5 minutes. That's all." "Your babies?" The anger hit me like a wave. "You walked out on them 4 years ago. You don't get to call them that anymore." She started crying then, ugly, desperate sobs. "I know I screwed up. I know I was sick. But I'm better now, I swear to God I'm better. I've been clean for 2 years. I have a job, I'm in therapy, you threatened me." I cut her off. "You called Sylvia horrible things. You showed up at their school. This isn't how someone who's better behaves." That's when she surprised me. She sat down right there on my front step and put her head in her hands. I know I've been acting crazy. It's just seeing you with my sister, it made me lose my mind. I thought maybe if I could just talk to the kids, show them I'm not the monster I used to be." Against my better judgment, I found myself studying her face through the gap in the door. This wasn't the Jessica who'd screamed at me over the phone. This was someone broken, genuinely broken, in a way that felt different from the drug-fueled chaos of 4 years ago. "The kids are at school," I said finally. "And even if they weren't, I wouldn't let you see them. Not after the stunt you pulled yesterday." "I wasn't going to take them," she said quickly. "I just wanted to see them, to see if they looked happy. If they were okay." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Did they ever ask about me?" The honest answer would have destroyed her, so I said nothing. We sat there in silence for a few minutes before she spoke again. "Is she good to them? Sylvia?" "She's amazing with them." Jessica nodded, fresh tears starting. "She was always better with kids than me. Even when we were teenagers." She wiped her nose with her sleeve. "I used to be so jealous of how easy everything was for her. Perfect grades, perfect husband, perfect life. And now she has my perfect family too." "It wasn't perfect when you left it," I said quietly. "You made sure of that." She flinched like I'd slapped her. We sat there for another moment before she reached into the gift bag and pulled out a small photo album. "I made this for them. Pictures from when they were babies, some of the good times before I ruined everything. I thought maybe they'd want to have them." I almost didn't take it, but something in her expression made me reach through the door. The album was handmade, clearly put together with care. On the cover, in her familiar handwriting, it said, "For my beautiful children, love, Mom." "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said, standing up. "I know what I did is unforgivable. But I need them to know that I love them. That the person who left wasn't really me." Before I could respond, another car pulled into my driveway. My heart sank as I saw Sylvia getting out, having clearly left work early again. The timing couldn't have been worse. Sylvia walked up the driveway slowly, her eyes never leaving Jessica's face. When she got close enough, she said, "Hello, Jess." "Sylvia." Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. "You look good. Really good." "You can't be here," Sylvia said, but her tone was softer than I expected. "The kids are at school." "I know." Jessica glanced between us. "I was just leaving." But she didn't move. Instead, she looked at Sylvia with an expression I couldn't read. "I'm sorry. For what I said on the phone. It was cruel and unfair and you didn't deserve it." Sylvia crossed her arms. "No, I didn't." "Are you happy?" Jessica asked suddenly. "Really happy?" Sylvia glanced at me, then back at her sister. "Yes. I am." Jessica nodded, more tears falling. "Good. That's good." She started walking toward her car, then stopped and turned back. "Sylvia? When David died, I wanted to call you. So many times. I was just too ashamed. Too high most of the time. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you when you needed me." Sylvia's composure cracked a little. "I needed my sister," she said quietly. "I needed you to help me figure out how to keep living. But you were gone." "I know. I'm sorry." They stared at each other for a long moment, and I could see years of pain and love and betrayal passing between them. Finally, Jessica got in her car and drove away. That night, Sylvia and I talked for hours. She admitted that seeing Jessica in person had shaken her more than she expected. "She looked so broken," Sylvia said. "Not like the person who called me names on the phone. More like the sister I grew up with." I showed her the photo album Jessica had made. Sylvia flipped through it slowly, stopping at pictures I'd forgotten existed. Jessica holding our son as a newborn, both of them laughing. Jessica teaching our oldest daughter to braid her hair. Moments from before the drugs, before the cheating, before everything fell apart. She was a good mom once, Sylvia said softly. I know that's hard to believe, but she really was. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, it doesn't. But maybe. She closed the album and looked at me. Maybe the kids deserve to see these. When they're older. When they can understand that people are complicated. I agreed, but I also made it clear that Jessica couldn't just show up whenever she wanted. If she wanted any kind of relationship with the kids, supervised, limited, whatever, she'd have to prove she could respect boundaries. The next morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. No postmark, so Jessica had obviously dropped it off herself sometime during the night. In it, she apologized again and gave me the address where she was staying. She said she understood if I never wanted to see her again, but if I ever changed my mind about letting her see the kids, she'd be willing to do whatever I thought was best. Counseling, supervised visits, whatever it took. At the bottom, she wrote, I know I can't undo what I did. I know I hurt them in ways that might never heal, but I'm their mother, and I love them, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn the right to tell them that. I haven't decided what to do with that letter yet. Part of me wants to throw it away and pretend Jessica never came back. But another part of me, the part that remembers how my son asked why his mother didn't love him, wonders if maybe someday, when he's older, he might need to hear that she does. For now, though, I'm focused on protecting what Sylvia and I have built. Jessica's return has been a test, and we've passed it. We're stronger than ever, more committed to each other and to the kids. But I'd be lying if I said her presence in town doesn't cast a shadow over everything. I just hope she means what she says about respecting boundaries, because I'm not sure how many more surprises like this our family can handle.